Okay, well, I finished up that first turn. Not much can happen. The British are allowed to move, but they can't leave Canada. The British Navy can't leave whatever river they're in, the Richelieu. And it's almost predetermined where they're going to end up. I mean, the one unit that enters from here moves as far as it can. It can't invade Vermont. I think there's a restriction against that, actually. And there's nothing of value there either. And the other units can basically slide down and grab their way to the roads. The road movement rate is half, like in many games. So since there's one goal down here and there's very little else to do, and that's one of the problems I'm seeing with this game right away. There's one goal. There's not much to defend it. Only the Saranac River, which is outside that goal largely. Look what the victory conditions are, actually. Does he just have to take the one hex, or does he have to take the hex that's oh no, that hex is across too. And he's not allowed to attack across it. And he's got to get to the Cumberland Bay with his boats in order to attack. And see what else? He's got two conditions. And he has to roll a 6 in order to freely attack across. So he's got to get his boats here without any American ships present. So it doesn't look like there's a lot. It looks like the English are going to move all their forces down, place themselves as much into Plattsburgh as they can in position to attack it. Hope they win a naval battle at the bay, and then hope they win the final battle. That's all there is to this game, from what I see. Now, the optional rules may make things more interesting, but it's kind of disturbing when things are that focused so that there's really very, very little play to the game in the non-optional. It's not like it's scripted, it's just the victory conditions and the one limitation of the Saranac River and what needs to be done prevent anything interesting from happening. Now, how much interesting could happen anyway? Not a whole hell of a lot. I mean, it still comes down to taking this and winning that naval battle. Those are the two victory conditions. That's it. So I'm suspecting this will not be terribly interesting unless cutting supply to Plattsburgh becomes a viable option for the Americans. So, for example, if the British look like they're going to get it, the battles for the supply line there might be of interest. That's all I see, though, right now. Well, this is a time limit game, and my feeling is the British forces are overwhelming in strength. There's a lot of rules having to do with delay, etc. So that's what I'm going to play it as. A little bit of confusion for me at the first. I'm like, defend the one place. No, that doesn't make sense. You never do that. So, after my mindless babbling, I'm moving some of the U.S. forces forward up to this little crazy creek, Chazzy Creek, river. They're going to try to blow bridges there, although they may not be able to. They may not have time, depending on how fast those British units are. The regiments certainly can't bring much up. If they have some dragoons or something, they may be able to reach 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They may be able to hit with some forces across that stream and grab a foothold immediately. Completed the fortifications here. Going to keep working in the Plattsburgh region, trying to build up those fortifications as much as possible. The American Navy didn't want to risk going to Plattsburgh Bay. The thing is, they could get out to Lake Champlain with no problem. From there, they have to roll a die, and they have to roll a 2 or less to get into a north-south sea area. So to move closer up here, they'd have to get a decent roll. They could do it into this space, and then they wouldn't have to roll again to get into Plattsburgh. But that's a fairly low chance, and if you're stuck out in the lake at the end of your turn, there's a chance of gales damaging your ships. They don't want to take that risk right now. For the British, though, there's another situation. These Vermont troops are out in Lake Champlain now. There's supposed to be a little box for them to indicate they're in transit. There isn't a map, one of the little errors in the map, but no big deal there. But now they have to decide, do they want to sail out and try to prevent a landing in the north? If they put the fleet here, which is a safe place to be, sort of, then they could prevent a landing up at the port here at Chazy Landing. They can't prevent Plattsburgh from being reinforced unless they sailed all the way down there, but then Chazy Landing could be reinforced, and I think that would be kind of foolish. There's no place further north that they'd be worried about, and no place in between that they're really worried about, that there could be a landing. So those are their key locations that something could happen. Until the Americans get their fleet to Plattsburgh Bay, though, they can't ship the invalids and the sick and whatever into Crab Island to man the guns there, for whatever that's worth. So there's a lot of little things going on. Some militia kind of straggling its way upward. There's the chance to build the roadblocks, chance to blow bridges, etc. Everything to slow things down. One thing I should do that I haven't is get some supplies moving up here. Is that a risk? Maybe. I've got all kind of little decoy counters. I'm going to spread them around to help remind me that these things are not clear who's where. And I'll just be putting a few everywhere in little pairs, so that I don't know what's where, and that'll help confuse me a bit. And I can deploy, this is a problem because I'm not going to be able to defend that. So I can deploy others up here, and that'll help a little bit. That's the limit of my decoy counters, and I'll pretend I don't know what's under them. Yeah, I'll largely forget anyway during my counter clipping pauses. Now it's going to be the English turn, and they've got some hard decisions to make here, and I'll think about them for a bit. So the wind didn't change. I'm not sure when that's supposed to be rolled for. It says at the beginning of the turn, before the British reinforcement phase. Well, the British reinforcement phase actually happens in the middle of the turn. I'm doing it at the beginning of the turn because that makes more sense, but I didn't mention it when it happened. The British fleet is still sitting there. Do I want to try moving them? Maybe. I should have done this first. Let's see how far I could move them. I could move them 7. Now I'd have to face the entire American fleet, potentially, if I move over to Chazy Landing. That's something I'm not really willing to risk. I look at their fleet, and without the Confiance, I don't really want to face the Saratoga. It's a bigger ship. So I want to be careful here. I'm willing to allow the Vermont forces to get up to Chazy Landing because I'm going to launch with Johnny Rotten here and attack on these units. I don't know what they are. It says a decoy counter there. But let's take a look at what the combat is like. First of all, I get to remove that decoy marker. I'll put it over here. It's easier to see what's going on there. So Rotten has 9 strength points to 2. However, he's attacking across a bridge. Nobody was able to blow that bridge. So that means the attacker will take 1 extra loss. Okay. So 9 to 2 is going to be 4 to 1. That's over here. Huh. I don't see any modifiers to the combat table. I think it's time to check the rules in the errata. I'll be back in a moment. Well, I guess all that pertains is the entrenchments, which are mislabeled, of course, as may some of the combat units be. For example, this is an artillery unit, even though it doesn't look like one. And I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a strength 1 or a strength 4 unit. That's again covered in the errata somewhere, and I can look it up. I think it's strength 4. And only important in naval combat. Okay, so let's look at the battle. It's going to be 4-1, and I got +1 for my leader. The attacker takes an extra step of losses, though, which is going to be kind of painful. Let's see what happens. I roll a 1, which isn't good at all. That takes me to a 2. Both sides take a step. The attacker takes a second step. That destroys the Aiken unit, which I believe is a militia, so it can come back. And I take 2 steps. Which I'm going to take off of my cav. Sucks to lose your cav, but you know, I didn't want to lose the big infantry either. That's a success. I'm in. Cool, huh? Okay. Well, that's the first turn. Actually, I ran over that spy, so I get to roll on the spy table for him. 4. I get to learn the enemy strength. Well, I got to learn that real quick anyway. Alright, well, on to turn 3, and the beginning of the U.S. turn. Hey, you know what I forgot? I forgot there's supply expenditures for attacking. Now, I have supplies. One, I think Brisbane has some with him. So he loses 1. That goes back here. Now, I get 1 per turn, so it's not that terrible. But it may mean something. And I had to expend 1 here. From here, 1, 2, 3. I didn't have 1 within range. So it was not that. There may be less casualties to the Brits, perhaps. So instead of 9-3, it would have been 9-2. No, instead of 9-2, it would have been 9-1, which puts me on the top level. And I believe actually that's an automatic defeat. So there wouldn't be any casualties whatsoever. Let me look that up. Oh, that's in the errata, I think. Maybe. And yes, this is a pain, but it is a fairly simple game. So once you get used to it, you might find it. I do not see rules on that. Oh, there's retreat before combat. You need a leader for that, though. Yeah, maybe it's where... There we go. Any attack at 6-1 or more has all defenders eliminated, no attackers eliminated. The traditional DE. So, those dragoons survive. Good enough. Well, that was bad for the Americans. Too bad. Okay. I'm going to send this one up beginning of turn 3.